former Intercontinental Champion. We will get to that later of the top 10 Intercontinental Champions, but we have one more bonus scandal, and this actually goes further back than this scandal. This is when the Intercontinental Championship was originated from the very, very beginning, back in 1979 tournament. We're going to get into that now. That was over this story, which is why WWE chose Rio de Janeiro, if I said that correctly, for historic Intercontinental title debut. Wrestling fans know Pat Patterson becoming the first ever Intercontinental champion in Rio de Janeiro, but we now know why they chose that city. There's stuff behind that too. Like, subscribe as you guys come in. We give you pure information here, give you good wrestling content. Also, like, subscribe at the Red Carpet Ring on YouTube and also on Rumble. We will be at those platforms later. But let's continue the story. Bruce Pritchard, in an interview, he said that they had a tournament in Rio de Janeiro, and the reason the tournament was held there because the winner of that tournament that never actually happened. What? Never happened. They said was the only and only Pat Patterson champion. And the reason they picked Rio de Janeiro because Pat couldn't say Rio de Janeiro. That is petty. Bruce goes on to do a goofy impersonation of Pat's trying to say the name and finally adds that Vince found it absolutely hilarious that Pat couldn't say the words so much he would have Patterson do color commentary. But the highlight of this is right here. It says it right here. What makes it interesting, there was no tournament. There wasn't a tournament. So the whole tournament of the Intercontinental Champion, which was merged of the Mid-Atlantic Championship and the South African Championship, which was held by Pat Patterson, the South African Championship, and the Mid-Atlantic Championship held by Ted DiBiase. They said that was not really a tournament. It was just a storyline to get the Intercontinental Championship in an origin story. And that origin story was being based in Rio de Janeiro, was chosen for that one specific and frankly petty reason, which I do agree, because he couldn't pronounce the words correctly. That is crazy. And they say, like I said earlier, Ted DiBiase was currently holding the North American Championship, and back in '79, and he lost to Pat Patterson, South African champion. Knowing this was back when Vince McMahon Sr. ran the WWF at the time, Vince's dad, he did not want a South African champion or a North American champion, so he did something. He needed something bigger in both titles, but not as quick, not as big as the world title. And he compromised what's called the Intercontinental Championship. That's how the title was born. And that suggests that Patterson won this. This is crazy. I never knew until recently there was never really a tournament. It was basically all a lie. It was just a storyline. That's crazy. I just recently found out not so long ago. And I know Mr. Goodbread can give his input because he knows more about story than I do.
Yeah, definitely. You touched on it. This was a title. See, this title took a lot of evolutions because now, when it originally came, it was just WWE could not use this title under their umbrella because Vince Senior he still had respect for the territory. Vince Jr. he did not have respect for anything. So, like you said, they hired $1 Million Man. This was part of Vince's plan to destroy the territories. $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, guys, for those y'all didn't know, he was the Mid-Atlantic champion in the territory. Vince bought him and the title. So he came, part of him offering him a contract was so he can steal the title over. So he brought the title over, right? He lost it to Pat Patterson. That's when Vince knew he cannot use that that North American title. Besides that, at the same time, Vince Jr. started to get more control over the company. They were grooming him to take over from his dad. So he had an idea to where he can get like a, how could I say it? I mean, it's real racist, guys. The root of the Intercontinental Championship, as we know it, is real racist. Like he wanted a Caribbean title. This is why, if you notice, a lot of the people that have that title were Spanish orientated. Pedro Morales, Tito Santana, a lot of them, right? So the part where you say he couldn't pronounce Rio de Janeiro, that's why they chose to have it in Rio de Janeiro, because they was trying to give it that islandy, that Pacific, you know what I mean, type. They wanted to give it that Pacific feel where, you know what I mean? In the process of that, they they created that whole idea of it being a tournament, which it was no such thing as a tournament. It was just that they needed to come up with a reason why Pat Patterson just was the North American champion. You know what I mean? So then instead of just merging the titles, they left the North American title to be to the, I think somebody beat Pat Patterson. No, somebody beat Ted DiBiase. No, Pat Patterson beat Ted DiBiase, and
Right.
then Pat Patterson ended up having two titles. He had the Intercontinental title
And
with the
South
new
Africa.
Intercontinental, and he had the what you call it? He actually had the, what's the title? The North American title. He had
South,
both.
yeah, the North
He
Atlantic and yeah, North American and the South African title merged to the Intercontinental Championship.
yeah, yeah, but that North American title, he lost it in a non sanctioned match. He lost it to a guy who ended up retiring with the title until they just brought it out with Adam Cole. You know what I mean? In which he
Yeah.
didn't matter. It didn't matter to him because they needed to usher in the Intercontinental title, and that's what they did. They ushered in the Intercontinental title. He went on to lose the North American title, and they just not mentioned it. Like, that's what make this title such a scandal, because it they still didn't never mentioned. I forgot the guy's name that won the North American title from Pat Patterson, but that was weird, and the whole thing stems from a lie. But once Pat Patterson lost it, that's when they started to usher in this tropical. Let's get the Islanders. If you notice, all of the guys that swamped around that Intercontinental title was Tito Santana, Jimmy Silverfly Snuka, Pedro Morales. You know what I mean? All of those guys were not American descent.
Man, you touched on some good points there. And I just thought about that reading the story. The North American Championship now is with NXT, which is WWE's developmental brand that comes on Tuesdays. So that's how that championship is basically not a new title, but it was rechristened. It's just not on the main roster. They put on a developmental roster. And I didn't think about it. It did have islandy, non-American guys win that championship in the beginning. Like you said, Jimmy Snuka, Santana, Don Morocco, I believe. He helped promote the thing.
Absolutely. I forgot
Yeah,
his name, Don Morocco.
Don Morocco. Yeah. Um, him. You had many other guys. So it's a lot of dirty laundry behind this championship. It's just they don't want to say it's not, but it really is. But this championship had a lot. And then, like I stated earlier, you had China, only one woman win this championship, but the way she won it is because Jeff Jarrett held up Vince McMahon for 300 grand, and they want to highlight that. It's just a whole bunch of stuff with the Intercontinental Championship. Now, I'll give another bonus again. I found something recent too. Cody Rhodes, when he brought out the retro design of the Intercontinental Championship back in 2011, he was supposed to put that out like that. WWE almost got sued for putting that out. I heard scandal, and because it was so popular, it pretty much resurfaced that design. They kept it until recently. They got a new design back in what 2020, but 2011 they brought that design back. And I heard Cody was supposed to put on TV because Cody Rhodes was the champion at the time they brought that design back. Before he left in 2016. So like I said, it's always some drama behind this belt. It's like this drama cannot leave the championship.
That's a fact, though, KDH. And the title definitely went through so many different transitions and re-upmakes, and the actual title that Cody had wasn't the original white lace belt. It wasn't the original because it was missing the gold tips. It was missing the gold strap, the gold tips on the strap. You know what I mean? And it was missing the actual WWE logo that's imprinted on the buckles, on the buckle part. But it did look really, really close. But it was different from the title that the Warrior wore, or even the title that Mr. Perfect had. Up until they changed it once I think it was when the Rock won it, when they Rock won it, and they went with the more ovalish. They went with that more ovalish title. Stone
Yes,
Cold threw the title in the water, some shit like
in a
that.
river, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the one. I didn't like that design too much. I like the old school one. And I do that horrendous one they have now. That's a whole nother story for another day. I hope they redesign that one too. But give or take or two, we'll see how long that lasts. Um, but those are the scandals behind the Intercontinental Championship. Now, let me see who's in the house here. D Brown, what's going on, brother? Thanks for coming out. Appreciate it, man. We're gonna go over and head over to that bridge, cross that bridge. Now we're gonna talk about the top 10 Intercontinental champions, and we will also discuss some honorable mentions. We'll do that as well, and then we'll highlight the match of the Intercontinental Championship of the number one guy, whoever that guy is. We'll highlight that particular match. But until, like I said, but we're gonna head out of here. You guys give me.
Before we go, can I add one more thing about the IC title, man?
Go
Because
right ahead, man.
this is one of my favorite titles, right? This is one of my favorite championships. I like the design of the belt, and I just think I want to give a big up to Walter, aka Gunter, for bringing it back to a Promise Show, because this title was buried for years. You know what I mean? And now it's coming back to relevancy. And WWE missed the boat on so many different wrestlers that's supposed to have this title, man. That's all.
Yes, I agree. I do love the Intercontinental Championship too. It's a working championship. It's the mid card title. It's a stepping stone championship before you become world champion. It's definitely a good title. Oh yeah, see who else in the house.